For those of you that are living under a rock, this is Frank Sondors. He is the guy behind, I don't know, MailForge, SalesForge, InfoForge. There's like so many forges right now, I can't keep up with it. But he has created an empire at this point of software that's built really to help agencies and to help individuals that are looking to expand their sales footprint, improve their sales, like everything, man. Like again, we were just chatting about all of the complexities of this space and how much more difficult it's getting, and you've created a suite of tools to kind of help people with that. And so would love for you to give yourself an intro today and kind of talk about a little bit about yourself and your and the company. But let's. I want to jam kind of on some of the things we're seeing in the space. So the agentic future, as everyone always speaks about, because I know you've got Agent Frank and some tools coming out. But like what people need to do and how they're going to need to adapt really in the next year, because like, you know, just sending a couple emails every day or a couple messages on LinkedIn every day, like for anyone isn't going to cut it if you're trying to achieve growth in the coming years. You have to start utilizing these tools and these tactics to have success or you're screwed. And then let's make sure that we spend some time giving some like applicable advice for salespeople, agencies, that are looking to, I don't know, again, be successful this year. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Cool, man. Give yourself an intro. I'd love to hear from you.
So my name is Frank. So I've been in sales well over a decade. In my last gig, I had a sales team of 50, and then this is where I saw the bloat when it comes to around headcount, right? And it was back in the days, growth at all costs, and that's when I realized that there must be a better way of doing things. So yeah, I built a bunch of what we call forges, softwares. Ultimately, it's a bit like Apple ecosystem. You pick and choose whatever you need to scale your pipeline with the lowest headcount possible, including an ability to spin up one of the best AI SDRs out there. And I guess where the future is definitely headed is we're seeing more and more the use of fully autonomous systems that are being used in tandem with humans. I'll give you an example in my own world right now, and using here the Forge. So let's say when the user signs up for one of our products, and if they don't end up buying, Agent Frank is actually calling them on inbound. It's not something that we sell, but essentially, imagine you're gonna get a call. Christian is gonna say, "Hey, Christian, I saw that you signed up, and maybe you had a demo of our product, etc. What happened? What you didn't like, etc., etc." So you're gonna have a bit of conversation. Would you like to, have another call and maybe discuss this, whatever? And that's an example of where we are leveraging autonomous system on a particular place in the funnel, right? Instead of asking the humans to call the prospects. Um, and that's naturally because we leverage humans in places where it's very tricky, let's say, to use AI agents. So I'll give you an example there as well. So let's say it's illegal to be leveraging AI SDRs to do cold calling right now in the US and Europe and probably other parts of the world as well. So as a result, that's an example of where you would use the humans, but on the inbound front, you can definitely leverage systems to call your prospects. So yeah, what we're gonna see and what I want to definitely give an advice is to look at leveraging autonomous systems, whether you are an agency or not. It's just gonna be the default essentially of how you run your operations. And there are even people on LinkedIn that I see all the time. It's just literally one guy that's running like a 50K MRR agency business with gazillions of agents behind the scenes. So it is possible to
What's his
achieve.
name? Give him a shout out.
It's I believe it's no. I can't remember the agency name, but it was Noah. I can't remember his last name. But he was Noah. But I don't remember his last name. Sorry about that. But I always see him on LinkedIn. He's always
Yeah.
saying that he has scaled through May.com.
Oh,
That's what
Noel. Noel. He was on like 2 weeks ago.
I was Noel. Sorry, not Noah. Noel. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was
Yeah,
Noel. Yes.
he's killing
Uh,
it, man. He's killing
yeah,
it.
he's really good, right? So and yeah, he doesn't have any employees at all. And I would love to. have only agents around me. But I do have 40 employees right now that I hired over the first 12 months. Um, but yeah, we're also looking at ways of how do we essentially not hire, right? So it's not about replacing, but how do we build around our small team? Well, 40 people is a lot, but how do we build autonomous systems so that we don't have to hire more people? So I literally have a guy that I hired, what I call an N8N guy, and he literally builds 5 to 10 flows every single week to kill anything that's repetitive in our business. I think by now, he's probably built like 1,000 flows already. So the system's, running, fully autonomous. AI agents are calling, whatever, everything's happening. So if something works really well, I'll get a ping on Slack. If something doesn't work, I'll get a ping on Slack as well. So that means the humans don't have to be kind of doing any form of research, anything literally. And I think the
We
other
have a
guy that's
full time automations team member, and it's man, it's insane. His name's Tassine. He's one of the first people that helped me build Rev Reply in N8N 2 years
Mhm.
ago, and now all he does is build N8N. And man, he's critical to our company, and he's just a great friend. But just seeing what they can do, man, it's crazy. It's like if you want to build a baseline for a product, build it in N8N and see if you can make it work, and then go and build it as a
Yeah.
product, right? Like it's crazy.
And if you look at Google Trends, you'll see that NAN is just going through the roof, literally, versus Zapier or Make.com. So I do believe that actually the future is on N810 rather than any other automation software. And if somebody's struggling with inspiration, you could just go and search on YouTube. If you want to follow somebody on LinkedIn, there's gazillions of people on LinkedIn that talk about
Yeah.
N810. I think from our space in particular, like sales technology space, you can look at Max from Triggerfy. He talks about N810 quite frequently and what he's building. And you get inspiration, right? So I think the dilemma with sort of let's call it humans is that you need to yeah have that inspiration. You need to know like you need to think outside the box really for sure, right? So we do have this channel that's called NA10 Ideas channel, and this is where we just dump a lot of ideas into this, and then the guy just picks it up and kind of produces that. So whichever idea is closest to revenue, that's what comes first. And yeah, that's how we kind of also prioritize, right? So it does have a revenue impact on the business. So yeah.
That's awesome, man. What do you give me an example of like an AI, one of your AI agents or like a workflow? How do you see things going in the let's say in a year when someone says, "Man, I got to start prospecting," and how do
Sure.
you think it's going to end up ultimately being between using agents and all of these stuff?
Yeah. So I guess let's take another example, just literally from today. I saw this guy. Maybe some people know him. His name is Amir. He runs this marketplace called CloudTask, and I think he has this sort of page where it says, I need more meetings, and then the user has two options: either you hire an agency, right, or the other option is you can literally hire an AI SDR. And he's saying, that he sees a lot more demand for what's going down the AI SDR route. Not sure whether it's true across whole space. I think agency space is much bigger than the ISDR space. But anyway, so what the AISDR does, naturally because it's typically an off-the-shelf solution, right? So it works in a particular way, whereas an agency can set up custom stuff, right? So, but the way that our AISDR, so Agent Frank, the way that he runs is so you set out your value prop within the software. What is it that you're selling? And you can have multiple value props because you're selling multiple products or services, say as an agency. And then you can also dump everything about your business into the RAG that we have. So, if you're a typical company like a sales org, or you have a playbook, maybe pricing docs, FAQs, whatever, just dump everything. I typically use everything, even blog data. Just dump everything on my end. And then we set the ICP. Then against the ICP, you can either upload your own list, or we have like 12 native integrations and gazillions of different CRMs. So you can pull a list from Salesforce or HubSpot or Atio or whatever, and process that list. Or the other option is to use where the agent will use our data product, so-called Leads Forge. So this is where we're going to find the leads across a lot of sources, and we will take that list and process that list. And so what happens is then the agent goes and reaches out to every single prospect with a unique, what we call unique email. So we programmatically stage two data sets. So the value prop, or what we call the seller data, and we stitch that with what we call the buy data, so the context on the prospect. So what do we know about them, all based on all publicly available data on the web about this particular person. So if somebody wants to try it out, go to agentfrank.ai, you could get a unique email for yourself, delivered in a few seconds. And So we craft that email. We send up to 3 emails uniquely computed to every single individual in any language of your choice. And then if yeah, if we get a response back from a lead, then there's a communication kind of back and forth that already happens there by the agent, and then we set a goal for the agent that he needs to achieve. Typically, it's the meeting booked goal, so you can hook up your Calendly or whatever the other calendar solution. You can also ask from the prospect for their calendar link. That actually works slightly better. Um, or the thing essentially where you don't want to have any meetings with your prospects, that's where you can set a goal, say that the agent should drive traffic, say, to your site. Actually, we're seeing that quite a bit. So let's say you want the conversion path to continue on, say, from the sign-up page or whatever the landing page is. So we have also some of the folks that do that because they don't want to be talking to users. I don't know, maybe they run a PLG motion and stuff like that. So, and that's it. That's what the
Sounds a
agent
little bit
does.
like sounds a little bit like Rev Reply, so we might have to clip this. We might have to clip this segment out. But outside of that, this all sounds fantastic. Every other bit, but that no, I'm just kidding, man. That's but it is that is the flow, right? And then
That
last
is
but not
typical.
least, right? You're talking about having a dialing agent. So once that flow comes in, and then you're able to. I mean, I don't know if we're allowed to say it, but like, yes, there's some people and some. I mean, if it's inbound, you're certainly allowed to have an agent make these
Yes.
dials, right? And start interacting and just like being more omnipresent, if you will, which is one of the things that we were talking about earlier. Is just being kind of everywhere, and or for you, all of the forges trying to be a little bit of everything to everyone, right? Because what do you see as the biggest hurdles that are going to be for lead gen or cold outbound in the next year, right? A lot of them come down to deliverability.
Yeah.
A lot of them come down to a much more saturated space. So emailing and getting responses is getting harder. So, okay, cool. You back that up with calling. That's getting harder. Be able to automate that so you can do more of it. I mean, there's going to be a lot of these challenges that are going to become more and more common. Even data, right? Like verifying and enriching data. It's Oh man, like you can't mess it up because if you mess it up, all of a sudden your campaign blows up, your campaign blows up, your inboxes blow up, your inboxes blow up, everything goes down. I mean, it's just you got to be perfectly dialed in this coming year.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is getting tougher. There's more software out there, more people sending more emails, etc. We do expect more restrictions from Google and Microsoft. So
Talk,
we
talk
kind of,
about that a little bit. Oh, sorry, go ahead, go ahead. But I'm interested in
I
hearing
mean,
what
we,
you
we do
see as
expect more policing, right?
yeah.
Because it's not like Microsoft and Google are dumb or something. I mean, they do see what everybody's doing. So we do expect that eventually somebody will have an OKR internally at Google, Microsoft, and they'll start making all of our lives significantly more difficult. Um, and it's a bit hard to predict what they're gonna do, but this is why we diversify and dilute so heavily on our end, so that when shit will hit the fan, essentially, ultimately, we are ready for it. So we have other options on the table, which is why we have the whole ecosystem approach. You can quickly switch, let's say your email volume towards other infrastructures, many other things. Anyway, so I mean, it will get tougher. So you need to build it in a way that it will be very difficult for Google, Microsoft to do anything about you. So, and essentially there's multiple dilution levels, multiple ways of kind of helping customers to de-risk their deliverability is how we are looking at this, and essentially trying to predict sort of what Google, Microsoft will do. But yeah, the fact that they will do nothing is not an option on the table. So they will do something, and it's
Yeah.
just trying to think what is it the next thing. Um,
Do you think data will get harder because like small companies that are making people's emails and stuff aren't getting really more thoughtful about that type of stuff? But do you think like actually connecting with people or data cleansing is going to get more difficult? I guess I don't see that becoming the biggest challenge, but I don't know.
So what I'm saying is, just Jenny, and where the whole industry is also headed, right? So we're gonna all start using a lot more sort of, let's call it, autonomous systems to and AI agents to be reaching out to prospects. But at the same time, on the buyer side, they're also going to be leveraging more of the let's call it buyer agents. Let's call them that. So there are companies who are already going to come into space, like Fixer, for example, Superhuman, whatever. I mean, there are companies on the buyer side that ultimately what they do is, let's call it, protect the mailboxes of the buyers. and I can see a world where you're using an agent to reach out, and then there's an agent on the buyer side to take that email, process that email, have a conversation back and forth. I mean, if it looks relevant and it solves a challenge for that particular organization, then it will flow to the human, and that's ultimately what I think will end up happening because two businesses are just not you know able to talk to each other anymore.
Oh
So
man, so
agents will take over.
you think there's going to be agents in the inbox on the other side
Yes,
having a conversation with me, getting
with
all of
your
the
agent.
getting the valuable information, squeezing me. So it's like, hey, what's your pricing? What do you guys do? What makes you guys different? And after I have this back and forth with them, it's gonna pass it to the end user, and the end user's
Yes.
gonna go, pass.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, man.
ultimately, that's where we're headed. Like, because think about this kind of emails kind of going back and forth for days and days and days. Uh, I mean, two agents can just talk with each other and can kind
Totally.
of hash it out. And again, there's some sort of criteria, whatever that the buyer has on their end, and if it passes that criteria, it will float to the top, and the human will pick it up, and we'll have maybe that conversation with the human, and we'll jump on a demo, right? So,
Yeah.
um,
So
but
we've
I
got
don't see why this wouldn't happen because everybody's building agents on the seller side, and there are companies that are building agents on the buyer side already.
right.
Like, why wouldn't this just accelerate? I don't see a reason why that wouldn't happen because due to more autonomous systems, more automation, there are more emails being sent out, more cold emails just are being sent. So to protect the mailbox of the buyers, there will be, agents being built to process emails ultimately. Um, so yeah,
Interesting. And then you're going to have to not push for a meeting because like you're going to have to give it the information it needs to have the end user go back and make the decision themselves. So with like the fixer example that you have or superhuman example, it would be like, well, if you just push for a meeting the whole time, it's going to just shut down. Interesting. And we've got Jason in here who's like very much, he runs an agency where all he does is he runs perfect infrastructure. He's incredibly thoughtful with his automations around that. He writes fully AI written emails, um, which, as an agency, we don't fully lean into that, right? We're not like confident about that. Now, in some cases we are, but a lot of times, like that's not the only answer, right? But coming back to this, hey, you need a human element in here. How are you guys thinking about that? Because again, I think that yes, you guys have an AI SDR, right? We've worked on one. In fact, we're competing against Artisan starting like tomorrow with one of my clients, which I have no doubt will blow Artisan out of the water. But at this point, a lot of people are like, yeah, it's not quite there yet. It is there. What's your opinion on it? Is it just something, is it another piece in this puzzle, right? Like you should be doing some of your own outreach or working with an agency, and or you should have one of these AI SDRs running their workflows, because I think if the AI SDR was there, right, people would be like mass migrating to 11x and some of these
yeah.
competitors, Agent Frank, whatever, and they're not yet, right? Like, so being realistic with it, where does that fit in the stack?
I mean, I use all the above essentially. So, and that gives me learning. So naturally, I have sales reps, right, that can do whatever they want. They can email. They don't have to use the agent. I have the agent running as well, and I do have agencies that also work for us. So we do three, and that's because we are able to gather learnings, understand the behavior across the three pops. Let's call it that way, because it's not about one or the other necessarily.
Yeah.
Like we accommodate within Salesforce both. Like you can run your stuff and you can spin up the agent if you want to or not. Like it's up to you.
Right.
And if the agent doesn't work out, you can deprecate it as well, right? So,
Yeah.
or if you
Like
realize
you
that
don't
oh,
run
the agent,
only advertising on one channel. You don't say, "Hey, I only want to run
yeah,
digital billboards in small micro economies." No, you run meta ads, you
yeah,
run programmatic, you run retargeting, you run digital out of home, you run everything because all of them ultimately impact the funnel, right?
yeah. Because the way I look at it is, there's millions of businesses for us to reach out. So my time is massive, and there's no reason like why would I just use the agent, why would I just use the humans or etc. Well, we do believe in blending. So agencies have their own strength. So what are the strengths? So they're able to bring their expertise working with other companies, right, and looking at dilemmas right from a different lens. So they do bring that knowledge into the game, and that knowledge is very valuable. I can learn something from that and apply. Doesn't matter either to the agent or to the humans on my end. to optimize the overall. But yes, why wouldn't you do all the above? So
Yeah.
we do everything. We do SEO, SEO programmatic, paid media, YouTube, you name it, LinkedIn stuff, LinkedIn ads. I do everything, and as long as the we can look at the efficiencies and say this is ROI positive, let's continue doing that. Um, some things do become slightly more difficult because we are in multiple places, and then we need to look at what we call the overall spend across multiple channels and whether we see a lift. Sometimes, this channel says there's zero conversions, but we know that the conversions are coming. It just there's attribution problem. Same with email. Like I'll give you an example. I sent an email to somebody. What did they do? They go check out the website and then we convert them on the site, but there's no attribution to the cold email, right? So we do drive a ton of traffic to our site across the multitude of secondary domains that we have. We have hundreds and hundreds of secondary domains just for ourselves that we use to reach out to folks. So yeah.
Question from Pierre. What's up, bud? He said, "How are AI SDRs currently approaching deliverability, if at all?" Now, I have a guess how you're going to answer this, right? Which is, "Hey, I've got a Lego blocks of tools here, and you need to stack
Yeah.
them up." But how do you think, again, as things become more autonomous, how is that like? That's a huge point, right? That's totally out of control of an agent, right?
So I know the stacks of most AI agents out there, to be honest. So I mean, they do very similar things to an agency, to be honest. They do spin up secondary domains. They do spin up mailboxes. They do all of that, just what an agency does, just programmatically. Let's call it anything, whatever you want to call it. So, and then from a sending standpoint, some of them actually don't have their own sending engine. So they would use one of the email sending softwares out there to actually execute agentic performance, agentic play essentially. So there's some agencies that do that. So essentially, what you see is that some AIs, their companies do what I would describe packaging more than building stuff, like real building stuff. We just build stuff. So when we build a new forge, we hook it up to the agent. Like so we always think about, okay, what will make the agent more powerful? So let's build that so we can use the API of that forge and like hook it up and make it a lot more powerful. That's how we roll. But yeah, there's other AI agent companies. I don't know. They came from YC and they need to spin up the agent ASAP. Guess what? They can't build all that stuff that needs to be built for the agent. So they're gonna go and buy, a gazillions of data providers. Make some contracts. They're gonna go naturally to Google, gonna spin up mailboxes, etc. But they do follow the typical stuff that the agency would do as part of the standard playbook. It's just that they package it into software. So I mean, you could say that some AIs, they are companies could be perceived as also agencies. It's just that we call them tech companies or AIs, they are companies, but they're actually
If
agencies.
you
You can
pulled
also put
back
it
the
that way.
curtain, it would be like that Wizard of Oz scene, when
Yes,
you pull
yes,
back the
yes.
curtain, the guy's like, "No, you can't see me," like there's a little
Because
bit of smoke and mirrors behind a lot of these ones. At least, again, like you're talking about, right? Like you've built the building blocks for it, right? And it's very transparent about what you guys are doing. Is, hey, like piece on my info with this and this and this and this, as opposed to some of the other agencies or some of the other AI SDRs that have come under pretty heavy flack here in the last couple months. If you've been reading anything about them in the news, because I mean, it's a
but I
hell
mean,
of a
they're under
lot.
pressure to deliver customer success, very fast, and you can't build that fast, even though with all the tooling, with all the AI that there is. So they will go and they will source vendors behind the scenes. Will package it and call it an AI agent. Um, I mean, it will work for some, will not work for the others. There's also a thing, on the AI SDR front, but same with the agencies, right? There's a huge churn. So agencies see a huge churn, but so do a lot of AI SDR companies. They also see a huge churn as well. And that's because things just don't work out sometimes, and that's it. So this is why,
Sometimes your offer just sucks. Like, let's be frank. Sometimes
yeah,
what you're selling isn't good. like,
yeah. So we have this sort of, let's call it, we're starting to build this anti-ICP. So, but to figure out what is an anti-ICP, so essentially, this is a good customer, this is not a bad customer. But to figure out what is a bad customer, guess what we need to do? We need to onboard these customers on Agent Frank. We need to see how they perform, and we need to let them churn. So then, yes, the churn rates will be higher, but like really, the reason why we're doing this in the early days is trying to figure out, okay, so like where's the problem? Is the problem really in the tech side of things, or do they even have a product market fit? Do they have a product channel fit?
Yeah.
Because for some companies, like cold email just will just not work. Whatever the reasons are, it will just not work. Doesn't matter what is the vendor that you'll use. Because when we run, for example, the agent, that we assign an account manager to every one of them to really figure out what again it's the either the tech or the industry, whatever the problem is. Like we optimize, we change a gazillions of things along the way to make it perform, kind of. Um, but there's definitely, so I'll give you an example. So I had a customer just churning recently with Agent Frank, and the guy was from the recruitment industry, and essentially recruitment plus cold email is very, very, very tough.
Incredibly
It's
tough.
like a super, super red of an ocean, and and so what we're learning is that it doesn't matter agent not or not, it's just highly improbable for you to be successful. um,
Yeah.
Guess what, my CTO gets like 5 to 10 emails a day about the same thing. Hey, are you hiring engineers, etc. And it is very
100%.
tough. And then I always ask these prospects, I mean, these days, hey, what makes you unique? Like, why the heck would I reply? And a lot of cases that don't really have an answer. And that just will mean that you will not see any results. You don't have an offer. You will not see
Super
results.
saturated,
So,
no offer. I mean, it's crazy, right? Another notoriously difficult one is like devs, like okay, dev
yeah,
shops, like how are you different, right? SEO agencies, how are you different? Like you better make a pretty goddamn like good guarantee or something. You better blow it out of the water, otherwise you're screwed. So yes, it is going to come back to ultimately, is your tool useful? Are you different, right? In a sea of competitors, how do you stand out? So a key to keeping that in mind when you go in and for anyone going in and testing these things and saying, oh no, doesn't work for me, cold email doesn't work for me. Like maybe you gotta go do that, like go take a look in the mirror that morning and be like, is it the tool? Is it the agency? Or like some of it
some of
is
this
like,
is a channel.
yeah,
Contacting. So I used to, I said, I was VP sales of with a sales team of 50. So for us, neither email worked, neither LinkedIn worked really well, but cold calling worked magically. And that's
yeah,
it. That's the channel, maybe for your business.
yep,
But you need to be testing these things. You need to figure out where do you get that traction. So the way that we looked at the email is like we would send an email, and then the next day we would call and we say, "Hey Christian, did you get my email yesterday?" So we like the goal was not to convert at all. The goal was just send you an email so that I can call you tomorrow and say, "Did you get my email yesterday?" So that was it. That's why we used it's the email was the assist to the cold call. And that
yeah,
is the strategy. And it worked fantastically well. We scaled that business quite nicely, raised the Series A and everything. Um, but there's definitely things like I'll give you another example. So I had this one company, and again they just raised a lot of money, and their website was just horrible. It was horrendous. So imagine you get an email from this company. You go into the website, and it just doesn't look serious. It looks fishy. It looks whatever. It's not. It's not. It's not. It's not the sort of company where you would like. Oh, let me reply back. You start raising suspicions and stuff like that, and like even have a normal have a normal website. And there's still a lot of companies out there that just don't have good websites.
crazy.
And then they want to send a cold emails, and they want to have a lot of meetings, and it's like, dude, but if I gotta go to your site and is that horrible? Like, I don't want to book a meeting with you. Like,
Hundred
honestly,
percent, 100%.
you see even simple things like that. So, and there's still
Frank,
a lot of them. So yeah,
I would love to wax poetic with you. I have a client call, but let's catch up again in another month or so, and we can dive into the complexities here of why people are messing up in 2025, and maybe we can help diagnose some issues. It's been incredible having you on, bud. Appreciate you as always. If there's anything I can do, feel free to hit me up. Cool.
thanks, man. I go.
Appreciate y'all. Take care.